47 names. That's what it took to silence the director of the FBI. Not a scandal, not an allegation, not a leaked rumor from an unnamed source. 47 names, documented in the FBI's own internal records, classified under official government codes, shielded from investigation by someone with enough authority to expect that wall to hold forever. Kash Patel sat at the witness table, looked at the cameras, and invoked the Fifth Amendment. The man who put him there in 11 minutes was Congressman Ted Lieu, and what he brought into that room that morning didn't just end a career. It rewrote everything the public had been told about the Epstein investigation. Stay until the very end, because the most important part of what you're about to hear never made the top of the newscast. House Judiciary Committee, Room 241, 4-1, 10:09 a.m. The gallery was already at capacity before Lieu walked in. Veteran Capitol Hill reporters were leaning forward. Staffers who had witnessed hundreds of these performances were watching the door without speaking. Lieu arrived with 2 aides. Each carried a sealed black case. They set them on the table in front of Louis's seat. 3 locks opened simultaneously. Inside, color-coded document files, red, yellow, green, not the scattered paperwork of improvised questions. This was architecture. A case built by someone who had decided, before entering that room, exactly where it was going to end. Kash Patel watched from across the chamber. His expression didn't move, confident, prepared. His chief counsel leaned in and whispered something. Patel shook his head once. He had handled hostile hearings. He had talking points for every scenario his team had mapped out. They had not mapped Ted Lieu. The first 20 minutes were exactly what Patel expected. Familiar questions from Republican members. He delivered practiced answers. Short, no details. Run the clock. He checked his watch at minute 18. He looked almost bored. Then Ted Lieu took the microphone. Director Patel. Calm. Measured. The kind of calm that experienced prosecutors hold right before something detonates. The room shifted without anyone deciding to shift it. Cameras refocused. The stenographer looked up. I want to start with something delivered to my office 48 hours ago. A secure drive. 2,300 pages of internal FBI communications spanning 6 years, June 2019 through February 2025. Every document sourced from inside your organization. Everyone pointing in the same direction. The silence that followed was dense. The kind that fills a room when people realize something cannot be unsaid. Patel leaned forward. Congressman, I would categorically challenge any characterization. You'll get your moment, Lieu said, not looking up. Right now I want to show you what's in here. He lifted the first document and held it toward the cameras. June 14, 2019, FBI Miami Field Office to Headquarters. Subject, Epstein Investigation, High-Value Network Contacts. The Miami office reports identification of 34 individuals with documented connections to the Epstein network. Witness cooperation confirmed. Flight records obtained. Formal request to open investigations submitted. He set it down. The response from headquarters, 3 days later. Not advisable at this time. Hold pending further executive review. Signed by the deputy director. He looked up. 34 names. Evidence already in hand. And headquarters said, wait. Patel's counsel shifted in his chair. Patel placed both hands flat on the table. Still, that was 2019, Lieu continued. 6 years ago. How long were those 34 people supposed to wait for accountability? Investigative decisions involve complex jurisdictional considerations. Let me show you exactly how complex it got. He pulled the second document from the red section of his file. August 10, 2019, 1 week after Epstein's death. Memorandum from the deputy director to all field offices. Subject, Epstein matter, closure. He read from the page. Effective immediately. This case is considered closed. All subsidiary investigations are suspended. Evidentiary materials transferred to headquarters for archival review. He looked up. Archival review. That is the bureaucratic phrase for a filing cabinet that no one opens again. A murmur moved through the room. Journalists typed without looking at their screens. 6 months later, before Maxwell was even arrested, an FBI analyst emailed their supervisor, "We have sufficient grounds to move on Maxwell immediately. Why are we holding?" Response, same day. Political sensitivities, awaiting clearance. Lieu placed the page down with deliberate care. Political sensitivities, whose politics director? Who exactly had become too protected to touch? Patel's jaw tightened. His hands stayed flat on the table. Director Patel. His voice didn't rise. It hardened into something colder. You need to stop protecting Trump and people like him. I am certain of one thing. When he's finished using you, you will be shown the door exactly the way Pam Bondi was. Used, discarded, gone before the ink on your loyalty is even dry. The room went completely still, so answer me directly. What were you promised to lie to the American people? What was the deal? What was the price of your silence? Answer me. Patel's counsel grabbed his arm from behind. Patel pulled free. His mouth opened. then closed. He looked at Lieu, said nothing. Lieu sat back down. He opened the next file. Red cover sheet, federal classification stamp across the top. This document was sealed until 72 hours ago, when a federal judge ordered its release. Dated February 3, 2025, 2 weeks after you were confirmed as director. He unfolded it slowly. Memorandum from the Office of the FBI Director to all field offices and division heads. Subject: Epstein-related investigations. New operational directives. Effective immediately. All active case files transferred to headquarters. No field office authorized to continue investigative activity without explicit approval from the director's office. All scheduled witness interviews suspended. All pending document requests denied. He lowered the page. At the bottom of this document, Director, there is a signature. The image appeared on the screen behind Lieu's head, enlarged, unmistakable. Kash Patel's own signature. The room didn't build toward chaos. It went from silence to eruption in under a second. Voices from the gallery. Reporters on their feet. The chairman's gavel cracking against the block again and again, barely audible above the noise. Patel's lead counsel stood up. Mr. Chairman, I must object to the entire framing of, Counselor, sit down. No heat in Lieu's voice, just wait. Your client has a microphone. Patel stared at his signature enlarged on the screen behind Lieu. The color drained from his face. His hands, still pressed flat on the table, pushed down harder, as though the surface itself was the only thing keeping him anchored. Director, Lieu said, quieter now. More dangerous in that quiet. Do you recognize that document? Silence. Do you recognize your own signature? 7 seconds passed. A pen clicked somewhere in the gallery. Lieu reached into the final section of his file and removed a single page, clean, formatted. A list. Internal FBI document. Generated in 2021. Updated during your tenure. Title: Individuals excluded from Epstein-related investigative activity. 47 names. He turned it toward the cameras. Each name carries a classification code. Code A, political sensitivity. 12 individuals. Code B, diplomatic relations. 8 individuals. Code C, national security designation. 15 individuals. He stopped. 4 full seconds of silence. And Code D, another pause. Executive branch protection. 12 individuals. No one in that room moved or spoke. The White House, Lieu said, is shielding 12 people connected to the Epstein network from federal investigation. That is not allegation. That is your own organization's internal documentation. He looked directly at Patel. Is that national security, Director? Or is that something else entirely? You have no right to question me. I did what I believed was right. Patel's counsel rose immediately. Mr. Chairman, his voice had shed all steadiness. My client invokes his Fifth Amendment rights. He will not respond to this question or any further questions in this line of inquiry. The reaction was immediate and absolute. Gallery on its feet. Journalists flooding the aisle. Committee members dropping their materials. The chairman's gavel crashing down over and over, achieving nothing above the noise. And Kash Patel, who had sat before the Senate during his confirmation hearings and promised transparency, who had told the American people he would follow evidence wherever it led, sat at the witness table and invoked the constitutional right not to incriminate himself. Because answering honestly would have done exactly that. Lieu didn't stand. He collected his documents, stacked them precisely, and looked one last time across the chamber at the man who had chosen silence. 2,300 pages will be public within 24 hours. Every email, every directive, every code, every protected name. The truth doesn't need your cooperation to exist, Director. It is already on the record. By sunrise the following morning, federal document servers had crashed from traffic volume. The first batch of files went live at 6:12 a.m. By 7 o'clock, researchers had isolated an internal email chain referencing something called containment priorities. Not management, not oversight. Containment. That phrase moved across social media faster than any communications team could get ahead of it. At 7:51 a.m., a former FBI analyst named Daniel Mercer appeared live on television. Former officials use careful language. They protect institutions. They deal in managed generalities. Mercer looked directly into the camera and said, "Those documents are authentic." The host asked the obvious follow-up question. Mercer paused exactly 2 seconds too long before answering, quietly just above a whisper. That clip reached 11 million views before noon, because in those 2 seconds, everyone watching understood that what he almost said was more important than what he actually said. By mid-morning, the White House press briefing had become extraordinary in its restraint. When a reporter asked whether the administration could confirm the documents were fabricated, the press secretary answered, "We are currently reviewing the materials. Not, these are false. Not, this is disinformation. Just, we are reviewing them." Every journalist in that room heard the non-denial inside that answer. At 2:47 p.m., FBI Deputy Director Alan Reed submitted a one-page resignation letter. No warm farewell, no praise for colleagues. One sentence near the bottom read, "I cannot continue participating in processes that compromise the credibility of federal law enforcement." Two more senior officials followed within the hour, then another. The director of the FBI was losing his building, not from outside pressure, but from people walking out of it. That evening, Lieu returned briefly to Capitol Hill. He stopped at the microphone. He looked the way people look when they've carried something heavy for a long time and have finally set it down. 47 individuals, he said, documented, protected, by codes written inside the same agency that was supposed to investigate them. He looked into the cameras. This is no longer about one hearing or one director. This is about a system that spent years believing accountability would never find it. He stepped away without taking a single question. And somewhere behind encrypted lines and closed doors, 47 people who had been certain their names would stay buried forever were now sitting with something new. The wall was gone, and it had been gone for longer than anyone in that building wanted to admit. And the man hired to keep it standing had just invoked the Fifth Amendment on national television. Now I want to hear from you, and I mean this. Drop it below right now. Do you believe Patel signed that directive alone? Or was there a name above his, someone who handed him the pen and told him exactly what to protect? Two completely different crimes, two completely different people. Tell me what the evidence points to, because the comment section is open, and I'll be reading every response. Let's see where this audience actually lands on this.